You're listening to the Everything Jewish 10 Minutes at a Time podcast, where you'll learn about every Jewish topic imaginable in about 10 minutes. And as always, I apologize for all of my Hebrew pronunciation. I know I'm going to pronounce Hebrew words wrong, so instead of getting annoyed, I give you permission to laugh at how I say things. Today's topic is the shofar. Yes, that ram's horn you hear on the high holidays. It sounds somewhere between a goose honking and a trumpet at a kid's birthday party, but its history is thousands of years deep. This isn't just a quirky sound effect. The shofar has been used to announce battles, coronations, revelations, and even moments of redemption. When we blow it in synagogue today, we're connecting to that ancient chain of meaning. So grab your imaginary horn, take a deep breath, and let's explore what the shofar is, how it's used, and why Jewish law has more rules about this horn than you might think possible for something that doesn't even have valves or strings. First, the basics. What is a shofar? It's usually the horn of a ram, hollowed out so it makes sound when you blow into it. Other animal horns can be used, but not every animal is kosher for shofar duty. For example, you can't use a cow's horn since it reminds us of the golden calf. That would be like bringing a whoopee cushion to a serious memorial service. Wrong message. The horn also can't be metal, plastic, or wood, only natural horn. Sephardic communities often use long, spiraled kudu horns, while Ashkenazi Jews tend to prefer the classic curved ram's horn. The curves themselves are symbolic, meant to remind us to bend our stubbornness and become more humble before God. Rabbis even debated whether straight or curved horns were better, but today, curved is generally considered ideal. Once you have the horn, it gets polished, hollowed, and tested until it's ready. Simple, natural, and powerful. Now, when do we blow this thing? The most famous time is Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, when the shofar is center stage. It's blown during morning services, but never on Shabbat. Why? Because Jewish law worries someone might carry the shofar to synagogue to practice, breaking the Sabbath rule about carrying in public. So even if the holiday falls on Shabbat, no shofar that year. The other big day is Yom Kippur, at the end of the fast, when one long final blast, the tekiah, closes the service. Historically, the shofar was also blown on the Jubilee year, every 50th year, to proclaim freedom. The Torah describes it as announcing liberty throughout the land. Imagine a nationwide PA system, but powered by lungs. Beyond those times, some communities blow the shofar every weekday morning during the month of Elul, the month leading up to the high holidays, as a spiritual alarm clock. Basically, the shofar isn't casual background music. Its calendar appearances are carefully scheduled with deep symbolic meaning. Of course, this leads us to the question, what sounds does the shofar make? The rabbis of the Talmud didn't just say, blow something loud. They created specific sound patterns. The main ones are tekiah, one long clear blast, shevarim, 3 medium sigh-like blasts, and teruah, 9 or more quick staccato sounds, like an old car alarm. And finally, tekiah gadola, a really long blast that goes as long as the blower's lungs can handle. Now here's where the rules kick in. Jewish law requires at least 30 blasts to fulfill the mitzvah, though many communities go all out and blow 100. Some do this to cover all interpretations of what exactly teruah means, since different traditions thought it was either sob-like or wailing-like. Basically, the rabbis hedged their bets. The point isn't volume or beauty, it's intention. The sounds are meant to stir the soul, wake us up, and move us to reflect, repent, and change. Who gets to blow the shofar? Traditionally, it's the Baal Tokeah, literally the master of the blast. This person is usually chosen for their skill and dedication. The rules say the shofar blower must be an adult Jew, ideally someone respected and God-fearing, because they're performing the mitzvah on behalf of the whole community. Women are not obligated in the mitzvah of shofar, since it's time-bound, but many do choose to hear it, and some communities allow women to blow it privately or in women's groups. Kids, of course, love trying it out, but synagogue blasts are serious business. Another rule, you can't interrupt with talking while the shofar is being blown. Once it's time, you listen silently, focusing on the meaning. If the blower messes up, they sometimes have to restart. And if you hear just the echo or a recording, sorry, that doesn't count. You need the real, unamplified horn sound. Speaking of rules, there's even a blessing before blowing the shofar. The most common one is Baruch atah lishmoa kol shofar, blessing God for commanding us to hear the sound of the shofar. Notice the wording. It doesn't say to blow, but to hear. The mitzvah is fulfilled by listening, not by being the one who plays. That's why everyone in the congregation is included, not just the blower. On the first day of Rosh Hashanah, a second blessing is added, Shehecheyanu, thanking God for letting us reach this season. Some traditions also have the blower wear a talit, the prayer shawl, during the blasts, treating it with solemn dignity. And here's a quirky custom. If Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbat and no shofar is blown, some synagogues will still symbolically talk about it, so no one forgets. Rules and customs work together here to make sure the shofar is respected, not treated like a party horn. What about how many times we blow it during the service? Well, the shofar is blown at specific points during the prayers. One traditional set is during the silent Amidah, another during the repetition of the Amidah, and a final series after the Torah reading. Altogether, this can add up to 100 blasts, depending on the community. Some traditions have the shofar blown quietly at first, then loudly at the end, symbolizing that even our private cries eventually become strong public declarations. Others teach that the 100 blasts match the 100 cries of Sisera's mother in the Book of Judges, symbolizing human suffering and divine compassion. Yes, even the number of times the shofar is blown has layers of tradition, debate, and symbolic meaning. Jews don't just blow a horn. We catalog and cross-reference it with biblical stories, rabbinic rulings, and communal customs until it's rich with meaning. The shofar also comes with traditions about preparation. The person blowing often practices weeks in advance. Synagogues keep their shofars in safe places, some even passing them down for generations. There's a tradition not to decorate them with fancy coverings, since that takes away from their natural rawness. And when someone blows it, they have to use their own breath, not rely on gadgets. You can't cheat with an air pump. Some communities even have a tradition of kids gathering around after services to try blowing it themselves, keeping the practice alive. There's also a rule about intent. The blower has to intend to fulfill the mitzvah for the listeners, and the listeners have to intend to fulfill it by hearing. No multitasking. If you're scrolling Instagram while the shofar blows, you technically heard it, but spiritually, you kind of missed the point. At its core, the rules and traditions aren't just nitpicky. They shape how we experience the shofar. They make sure it's not random noise, but a sacred act. Every detail, from what kind of horn to who blows it to how many times, is there to elevate the experience. The shofar is like a spiritual alarm clock, but instead of just buzzing you awake, it comes with an entire manual for meaning. It tells you to wake up to life, to responsibility, to change, to the bigger story of being part of the Jewish people. The rules keep it holy, but the sound itself keeps it real. It's not polished music, but a cry, a raw call that goes straight to the heart. And that's why, thousands of years later, Jews still stop everything to listen when that ancient horn sounds. That brings us to the end of today's episode on the shofar. We covered what it's made of, when it's blown, the sounds, who can blow it, the blessings, the number of blasts, and the traditions that keep it meaningful. Whether you see it as a cry from the soul, a symbol of history, or just the loudest way to start a new year, the shofar is one of Judaism's most powerful rituals. Thank you for listening to the Everything Jewish 10 Minutes at a Time podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please forward it to a friend who might also like it, or leave a positive review so others can find the podcast. Next time you hear the shofar, remember, it's not just a horn, it's a sacred reminder to pause, reflect, and tune into what really matters in life.